Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Franchise Show. This is the show, and I'm going to do it where we get under the hat of all things under the hats of all things franchising. And it's a live show where it's live if it's December the 9th at around 5:15 for about 50 minutes. And because it's live, we love you to get involved. So if you are here live, pop in a comment, say hello, and get involved in our discussions. So what do? Each week on the Franchise Show, we take a new topic, and we take a lovely guest to have a chat about that topic. And today is no exception on that front. We have a fantastic guest with us. But before we get to that, the topic that we are going to discuss today is how to retain good franchise employees. And to discuss that, we have the lovely Nik Plevan from etalent. Welcome back to the Franchise Show, Nik.
Thank you, Harvey. Great to be here.
Fantastic to have you here. Now, as I said, this is a live show, and we really do like you to get involved. The direction of our conversation generally goes along the way you want it to go, because look, that's what I've written down. Not a lot, is it? You would have thought I would have prepped more. But actually, it's because you are the producers and the directors of this show. So the questions you ask and the comments you put in are generally the way our conversation goes. So before we get into today's chat, there's going to be a lot of people that do know Nik, but for new people that have just joined us for the first time, or if you're watching this in the future, Nik, perhaps you could do a little introduction to yourself and to etalent.
Thank you, Harvey. So I'm Nik Plevan. My company is etalent. It's been around for 15 years, and I started it specifically to help companies recruit the right people in a somewhat different way than most people know. So we do it by assessing the personality of the applicants and matching that to the specific job that they're applying for. And it's been working pretty well. As I said, 15 years. We do it through a software package that we've developed ourselves, which includes the psychometric assessment. And essentially what it does is it makes sure that the people you recruit are perfectly suited for the role. And also because of that, it reduces your staff turnover.
Fantastic. Great introduction. And, our discussion.
You're back. You're back. I was panicking there for a moment. I thought, what am I going to do now? Harvey's gone.
Well, I'm not the important one here, so you'll be fine. Look, now I've gone down to the bottom there. It's I need to go. There we go. We're all right. Anyway, what I was going to say is that we're talking about how to retain good franchise employees, of course.
Yep.
And as you rightly say, it's a large part to do with how you employ people and who you employ, and are they going to be right for the job? Are they going to enjoy the job? Are they going to find it the right level of challenging? Are they going to have the right soft skills for that job?
Absolutely.
And if those things aren't in place, then they're not going to be happy, and they're going to get frustrated, and they're going to want to look elsewhere, and you won't retain staff. I mean, I heard a really interesting stat recently, and it was about forgive me always talking about coffee, but it's an industry I know. But it was a stat about how much it costs you to train a barista, and in terms of time of them being employed. And it takes about 12 months to pay your company back that money that it's cost to train them. And the average time that a barista will stay in a business is 9 months. So there's a little bit of issues there. And I'm sure it's the same in a lot of other industries. Right. Well, look, before we get into things today, let's just say hello to a few people who have joined us live. We have, of course, Simon Wise with us. Simon, fantastic to always have you with us on the show. Simon is, of course, a recruiter in the franchise space here in the UK. So I think Simon's going to have a lot to offer the conversation about how we retain good franchise employees. But if you are looking, please reach out to Simon and of course Nick. We have Hugh with us. Hugh, great to have you with us. He is commenting to extend the visibility of the show. So it's great to have your support, Hugh. And we've got Lisa with us as well, Lisa Feverick. And she has a similar show to this, and it helps women who are going through the menopause with great dietary advice. So great always to have you with us, Lisa. So let's get into this. So you're a franchise business, and you're frustrated because you're losing your good employees. You haven't got that consistency. Where does that start? Where does that problem start? You're saying it's right there at the beginning in the recruitment process.
Well, absolutely. And the problem I see these days is, first of all, that people don't define what the role is in terms of the soft skills required to do it. And if you don't define something, then how do you know if you've actually got it? And usually what happens is they post a job with a generic job title, it goes up on the job boards, and then what follows is CV screening. And to me, that's just the wrong thing to be doing, because the CV tells you absolutely nothing about an individual's soft skills. And as you rightly pointed out, Harvey, the right soft skills will keep somebody employed, and they'll be happy in that job, and they won't want to leave. Because if you have the right soft skills for the role, then going to work doesn't feel like work. It feels like what you enjoy doing anyway. You get somebody in a barista role that loves dealing with people, then every day is a fun day, because they are dealing with people all the time, and they're giving them coffee that they like, and they interact with them, and it's what they enjoy doing. But if you get somebody in that role who isn't suited to that, who perhaps is very good at making coffee but isn't particularly sociable, well, they're not going to like it because they're going to have to be chatting to people, and they think, well, just leave me alone, I want to make this coffee. So getting that part right is absolutely crucial. And unfortunately, most recruitment processes start in the wrong place. They start with a CV, which is, to my mind, wrong. You should use the CV, but do it later in the process.
That's really interesting. I think it's really, really important, some of those things you said there. If you're a franchisor listening here, defining those job roles is a great place to start. I remember, and I think I've shared this on one of our previous episodes, but I remember talking to somebody who had a new start business. And a lot of franchises are new start businesses. But what was really fascinating is, rather than, and again, you mentioned here, generic job titles, you need someone in finance, you need someone in ops, someone in sales, whatever it might be, right? You come up with these job titles that are age old, these titles, and the roles and responsibilities are also. And they're just connected to the job, not to a particular personality type or a particular person. But what he did is he divided up his business into, I think it was 300 tasks that need doing. And it was a fascinating way to go about it. And then he looked at each of these tasks to think about what type of person might enjoy doing those tasks. Collected together enough tasks together that it meant it was either a part-time or a full-time job, and then gave it whatever name you want. But it started a very different route to a lot of people that come up with these jobs. So I think it's really interesting. Also, and we're going to definitely get onto this, about the role the CV plays, and I know you feel very strongly about this one.
I do.
But it's not that you don't like a CV or you don't feel it has value. It's about where it sits in the process, isn't it?
Absolutely. the problem with it, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's the very first thing that happens is you're asked to provide a CV. And from the recruiter's point of view, the first thing they do is look at the CV, whether they do it manually or through some software or through AI. But the first thing that is it interacts with between the employee, so the candidate and the employer is the CV. And these days, what then happens is that a lot of really good people are rejected right at the beginning because they do not fit the ideal 110%. And unfortunately, that means that, as I said, a lot of really good people get discounted. A much better way would be to look at minimum requirements and identify those who have those minimum requirements, and then assess the people who pass that according to their soft skills. Because then you know, yes, they can do the job because they've passed the minimum requirements. But secondly, and much more importantly, you now know whether they have the right soft skills for the role or not. And that is far better than just looking at a CV that only looks at hard skills. And I don't know if you remember from one of the previous times I spoke here, the reason we do that is because hard skills are just not predictive of future performance. They just aren't. There's been plenty of research done that shows this is the case, whereas what is predictive is personality and soft skills, if you like, because they're transferable. So why we use the CV right at the beginning when what it tells us is hard skills and that's not predictive is a mystery to me. But there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I completely agree with you on this, actually. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with a CV, but I just think where it sits in the process just needs to be shifted along a bit. Look, we've got some great people here. We've got great questions coming in. I want to make sure we recognize everybody that is with us. We have Ellis with us. Now, Ellis is from Popeyes, and he's a store trainer. So it's fantastic to have you with us, Ellis. Great to have your experience and expertise. And let's see what you put here. You've got a couple of comments, so let's get them up on the screen. So Ellis,
that's true as well.
Yeah, people don't leave good jobs; they leave bad management. Yeah. I think that is true. I think that, you know, how you manage people, you know, it's all very well at the beginning, and absolutely we've spoken about this, that you need to get this bit right at the beginning, understand soft skills, how they apply to your business. But if you're terrible at managing people and they don't feel valued and they don't feel challenged, and yeah, I think that's probably the top reason why somebody leaves their job. I think absolutely spot on in this. What do you think about this one?
No, I totally agree with that. And I suppose that comes down to recruitment in the first place, because obviously somebody's recruited that bad manager. So we're back to the same position. But I totally agree that really good people can leave because of bad management. But I was, you know, I was really looking at it more from the point of view of the performance of the people in the business, and if you get their soft skills right, they'll perform a lot better.
Yes.
But I totally agree with this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right, we've got a few more people. Let's welcome everybody. Then we've got another question coming up from number 2 from Ellis, and we've got a question coming up from Neil Newman as well. But I want to welcome the fact that we've got Shams with us. Shams is now a regular on the show. Always great to have you with us, Shams. And hopefully we're going to catch up soon. He's put, hi, everyone. We've got Steve Barrett with us. He's put hire right, treat right, develop, retain, and flourish. Wow. I think we're going to come back to that one because there's some powerful words there. But and just want to make sure we have recognized we've got a couple more people. We have Mark Bewley with us. Great to have you with us, Mark. And we will come back to your point. And we've got Neil Newman with us, so we're going to come back to those. But let's put up that one from let's put up this one from Steve Barrett. There's a lot in this one, a few words here from Steve, but some powerful ones. Is there anything you can pick out of this one, Nick?
Well, of course, is absolutely right. If you hire the right people and treat them well, like Ellis said, if you treat them badly, they're going to leave, and then you develop them so that they grow in the role. Naturally, they're going to they're going to stay in the business, and they will flourish. I mean, yes, there are a few words, but they're absolutely spot on, and a lot of franchisees should pay heed to that.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, at the beginning, I had nothing written down, but I have just written down your comment there, my friend, because that's a good one. I like that. And I think that's one that a lot of franchisors can see some really sort of simple advice there and in a few words. So yeah, love that. Let's have a look at this one here from Mark Bewley. Mark's put recruit behaviors, teach skills. I think this is going to resonate with you here, Nick.
Absolutely. If, for example, you're looking to recruit someone to work in the care sector, they naturally need to be empathetic and naturally caring. Those are not things you can teach people. They either are or they're not. So you recruit the right behaviors. You can always teach the skills. You can teach someone how to make a cappuccino or an espresso, but you can't teach them to be sociable. So I totally agree with that. And that comes down to actually the essence of what I've been trying to say from, since we started today.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to have you with us, Mark. Mark is the UK Managing Director for Kelly Deli. Again, Mark's going to have some fantastic experience of recruiting people and what works and what doesn't. So really good to have you with us, Mark. Thanks so much for that comment. Really like that one. I've written that down as well. Let's have a look at another one here from Ellis. This is clearly a conversation that's resonating with our community. Franchising is a people-based business, as many are. And clearly getting the right people, making sure people are happy. It's really important in your business. Let's have a look at this one. So Ellis has put, I believe AI has taken over too much with the CV screening. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting one. It probably has. But if the CV came in later, AI screening it wouldn't be the issue then. What do you make of this one?
No, I totally agree. But we've now got the ridiculous situation of people getting AI to write their CVs that then goes into a system where AI reads their CVs. And, well, I wonder where you think that might be going. So absolutely. What AI has actually done is it's made a bad process faster. So I'm not sure if that was a good thing. Well, I'm sure it's not a good thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you're right. It probably has. And I guess as it's coming in and as it's being used and tailored, there are going to be better ways to use it within that recruitment process, and you've just got to be selective.
Absolutely. Oh, look, my dog is going out for a walk.
What's your dog called?
That's Teddy.
Teddy. Oh, yes, yeah. That's it. Yeah. Well, I was going to say hello and get him all excited then, but he's gone for a walk, so he's probably even more excited. Let's have a look at a comment here. This is a big one, this one, so it won't probably, I'm going to have to look over the top of it. This is from Neil. Neil is, of course, one of our lovely supporters at Gather. Neil has put, whilst I agree with Nick, you need to get the right person for the job, but environments, people, relationships, finances change. So as well as securing the right person, you need to also ensure they are nurtured, acknowledged, and managed throughout their employment. Else you will raise the possibility of them leaving your employment. Totally
right. I think we're back to Steve's comment really here. That's effectively what Steve was saying, is it not?
Yes, I think so. I mean, look, they're really important points, and I think you're right. I mean, there we go. There's Steve's comment back. But yeah, absolutely.
Totally agree with that, Neil. Yeah,
you can't do any of these things. The treat right, develop, retain, and flourish can only happen when you've got the first one of Steve's points correct here. Perhaps we can get into a little bit. So, you made some really, really good points there about defining what the role was, not really using generic things, trying to really nail down what that role is and what those soft skills might be. So once you've done that, let's talk a little bit about soft skills. Give me a few examples of what you would try and encourage people to use as soft skills.
So let me give you an example of how we would help a company recruit. So let's say we're looking for someone in the coffee business to work as a barista. They need to be sociable. They need to be accommodating. They need to be diplomatic. They have to have a good understanding in terms of what customer service looks like. And above all, they have to be resilient, because not everybody's as polite as we are, and you don't want them to react inappropriately with a customer who's maybe not as sort of friendly as you might expect. So those are quite important factors for a barista. But let's now look at something completely different. Let's look at a maintenance engineer. A maintenance engineer doesn't need any of those things, because they tend to work with things, not with people. So for a maintenance engineer, you're more interested in safety, detail orientation, following a process, working in a very structured environment, a totally different set of soft skills for that role. So that's the way we might go about identifying what's critical for a particular role with an employer, is look at the particular types of things that are going to be critical for that role and then assess only those. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's very much, you're starting here with trying to develop what things need doing in your business. A little bit like that example that I was using. Yes, there might be some predefined areas within the business that you can start with, whatever they call it, like a pillar, and that pillar might be operations, but then you've really got to look at what is needing doing within that part of the business.
Yeah.
And like you said there's certain people facing soft skills that are going to be important. And this isn't just about retaining your employees.
No, it's also increasing performance.
Yeah, and happiness,
Yeah.
And job satisfaction. You said something that I think was really interesting and powerful as well, that, it doesn't feel like work when you get it right.
No.
You're not dreading going into work on a Monday, if you can get these things right from the beginning.
Because if you're going to work and you get to do what you enjoy doing naturally, then it isn't work.
Yeah.
And then you perform a lot better because you're naturally doing what you enjoy doing. And nobody wants to fire you, and you're not going to leave because what you're doing pushes your buttons. So that naturally leads to lower staff turnover. Yeah. And it just seems so obvious to me. I find it hard to realize that some people just use CVs without really considering that maybe the people they're discarding have actually got all those specific skills, their soft skills, but just because their CV doesn't seem to fit.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. It's a very interesting discussion around the use of a CV. It was invented, I believe, in the 60s.
Somebody said the first one was written by Leonardo da Vinci, but I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I can't tell you that.
Oh, well, there you go. Let's have a look at another one here from Ellis. Ellis has put, I believe, from my vast experience within QSR, that coaching and development isn't implemented in businesses these days. Yeah, I think that this is a really interesting one. I mean, Ellis is a trainer, so he's obviously got a good experience in this. And I went on a training thing relatively recently, and they gave us a stat that within 6 days, people forget 75% of what they've been told during a training session, unless they use it. So I think I agree with this one. But I think it's about trying to make it interactive, trying to make it interesting, make it relevant, but make it relevant to their soft skills. My thinking on this is it's not just soft skills at the beginning; it's soft skills throughout. So you put a training plan together. It's not teaching hard skills; it's appealing to soft skills.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Have you had any experience of kind of this middle part of the process. Obviously, your software helps people attract the right types of people.
Yeah.
But what about when businesses approach you when they've been, how can we put this, not doing it the right way for a long time? You know, is it sometimes a tricky one to steer them back on course?
Well, to be honest, the people who get to speak to us usually have got that. They understand why we do what we do, so there isn't really that issue to deal with.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got a few more questions coming in. I want to welcome the lovely Joe Caruso, who is going to test me on the pronunciation of where he lives again. He likes to do this and make himself laugh. He's put, "Good afternoon, Nik Plevan and Harvey Tuck, from the frigid shores of the Susquehanna River at the top of the Chesapeake Bay in America, where the best franchise advisors are." There you go. How did I do, Joe? You've got to let me know now whether I pronounced that right. And apparently, the best franchise advisors live just there. Isn't that amazing? That's clearly where Joe lived. Very good. Well, look, Joe, put some comments in about your experience in America, and how you retain good staff there. I'm sure you have the same types of challenges. Let's have
How about Simon's question there?
Simon, let's have a look. This one. There we go. How would you recruit an airline pilot without having their technical experience and skill laid out in a chronological order? Their soft skills are important, but on their own, they will slam you into a mountainside.
Well, first of all, there are jobs, not just airline pilots, but maybe brain surgeons as well, where hard skills are really quite critical. And I wouldn't diminish them in the slightest. But there are ways of doing that without looking at a CV. For example, asking very direct qualifying questions that determine whether somebody has got soft skills or not. The hard skills or not, both in terms of qualifications and so on. But doing it in a very sort of, how should we put it, very systematic process that identifies the minimum requirements, rather than going through looking at CVs and sifting CVs, which ultimately are sort of often the work of the candidate, and they choose to put in or leave out whatever they feel like it. So there are a number of better ways of doing it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, actually. It reminds me of an amusing example I can give you of this. Because many years ago, I thought it would be mildly amusing to apply to be a spy. I'm a James Bond fan, and I thought it applied because genuinely the Secret Service, MI6, ran an advert for agents to sign up. So I went onto the website, and the first question was name, your basic details there. About 45 seconds into it, it was, do you have a degree? No, I don't. I put no, and it went, I'm sorry, your process is you've been rejected, basically. So I was a spy for 45 seconds. Well, that's what I'm going to say. But the point Simon's making here, absolutely. Yes, a CV can, for that type of role, it can sometimes set things out in this order, and you can see it. But if one of the things is you need a PhD in whatever. Here you need a type license or whatever it might be, and your commercial pilot's license, and they could be two, like you say, very direct questions. Yes, it's interesting. People have to try and accept something different here, and it's a very interesting debate.
I think that's the problem. I think we're so used to thinking of the CV as the sort of main document for being recruited or for recruitment, that we can't sort of seem to get out of it and think outside of the box. And simply identifying minimum requirements is so much easier than looking through dozens or hundreds of CVs. manually trying to read them, especially when you know that the information in the CV is potentially unreliable. So it's so much easier to get the candidate to answer these questions straight out, takes them seconds to do, and saves you a heap of work, and also achieves the desired result. Then look at the CV later in the process, once you're satisfied they've got the minimum requirements and they've also got the soft skills for the role. Then look at the CV. It's not that it's not a good tool, it's just that it's used in the wrong place.
Absolutely. We'll quickly go to this one. Simon's, but for the record, I don't disagree with Nick's approach, as we recruiters will look for soft skills and cultural fit alongside experience when recommending candidates for interview. Look, I think it's interesting. It's not a debate whether the CV is good. It's a debate where the CV fits into the process. And I suppose it varies depending on the, on the roles. If you've got a role where the typical number of applicants is half a dozen, right? Then look, there's nothing wrong with the CVs there. No. Because you've got the time to be able to, look in detail at those applications. I think where this really has an obvious fit is where you get 1,000 applications and you're missing the gems,
I suppose one of the things I find really frustrating is when you see these days people saying I've applied for 750 jobs that haven't even had a reply. It makes me think that can't be humans doing that. That's got to be some sort of automated system looking at a CV and for whatever reason deciding the person's not suitable, especially if you then look at the experience they've had and something's not right. And I think it starts with the CV. I
think you're right. I mean, it can be frustrating, and I've got real passion for trying to help people that are looking for jobs. And every Sunday, I try and repost a few jobs. It's something I've always wanted to try and do. But I think that it's when you're in that process of trying to find a new job, it can sometimes feel psychologically better that you've gone onto LinkedIn and clicked quick apply to 200 jobs, rather than looking through 200 jobs to find the 2 or 3 that you think, I'm a real good fit here. And then spending that time looking at those companies, seeing if you feel you're a cultural fit, seeing if you feel you've got the soft skills. So I think that there's a responsibility as well that lies with the candidates to change their approach in applying, as well as the other way around. What do you think of that one?
No, I agree. Of course, it's difficult to know whether the people you're referring to actually did do what you say they did, or you think they might have done. There just seems to be quite a lot of sort of laziness with certain recruiters when it comes to applicants for jobs, and simply relying on CVs, I think, is one of the sort of symptoms of that. But I just like you, I don't actually know whether that's the case, but we can just look at the evidence and make some assumptions.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have just joined us today, this is the Franchise Show, and today we are talking about retaining great franchise employees with the lovely Nik Plevan from etalent. If you are watching this live, please do pop in a comment. We've had lots of great comments today. It's fantastic to have lots of different people getting involved in what I think is a really important conversation. Before we get into sort of the second part of today's show, I'd like to welcome a few people that have registered for the show today. We have Laura Bradley from Bagel Brands. We have Kira Shannon from Buffalo Wild Wings. We've got 2 people from the lovely Caspers. We've got Raheel and Francesco, who I'm going to see tomorrow, from Caspers Desserts. We have the lovely Gemma Smoker from Gong Chai. We have Joshua Huff from Dave's Hot Chicken. A couple more. We've got Basil Salmon from Auntie Anne's. And let's go for this one. We've also got Ajmal from Boss Pizza. So fantastic to have you all with us, and many more. If you are listening live, please pop in a comment. And if you're listening in the future, put a comment up either on YouTube or on our LinkedIn, and we can see it and we can still respond to it, and the conversation can still continue. So let's have a look. I don't think that we've had this one up. So let's have a look at what Shams has said here. What do you find is the most rewarding non-monetary benefit for employees? Well, this is an interesting one. Obviously, Nick, you're involved in sort of the process of recruitment.
Yeah.
And look, within that process, there are different things that attract good employees. What's your answer and thinking on this one?
Well, it may not be totally appropriate to franchising, but we do still find that hybrid working, a lot of people prefer that. For certain roles, if you put that up, you'll get a hell of a lot more applicants. So things like that are very, people like them. Otherwise, we don't really get involved in that part of things. It's whatever the client wants. We do give them advice on salaries, because in some cases they're far too low and then they won't get any applicants. But otherwise, other than that, it's really up to them. Medical insurance is one of those things that is also coming up reasonably frequently.
I think it's a really interesting, and we are going slightly off topic, but I do like this comment actually. I remember talking to some franchisees about pay people fairly, get that framework correct when you're then going through the process of finding the right people and looking at soft skills, but get that framework correct. But actually, in terms of then rewards as people are going along, it's quite good to I used to say to people to sort of mix it up a little, because if you give people a list of benefits that they get when they've got a job, they soon take that list for granted. The health insurances, the bonuses, the commissions. I know they're monetary, but or the cycle to work scheme, or the I don't know, some do, you can work for a charity. But if you mix it up a little bit, and if someone does something amazing, whatever their role is, it doesn't have to be financially amazing, they just go up and beyond, and you just do something almost of the spur of the moment and do something different, and they don't expect it. Someone said give someone a day off, because they did something fantastic.
Well, day off on their birthday, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but perhaps not each time on their birthday, because again, they might then start to expect it. So it's but it's a great question, great point, Shams. Let's have a look. I think we've got one more that we didn't get to that I want to make sure that we do before we come to sort of the end of today. Here we go. This is from Steve. Steve's put CVs, a driver of recruiting, more of the same, and a killer of diverse thinking. Remove the CV, remove a lot of subconscious bias in the process. Ooh, what do you make of this one then, Nick?
Well, I totally understand what he says, because in a lot of cases, the CV, how shall I put it? Sometimes people are prejudiced by names on CVs and maybe ages and so on. So they would, if we got rid of the CV until much later in the process, when we've satisfied the person is going to be a good fit, it's much more likely to be successful in terms of having a good outcome than doing it right at the front when they would get discarded without even considering them further in terms of their soft skills. So that's what I think Steve is driving at here.
I think that is really interesting. I think the bias in a CV, I do think what you just mentioned there, Nick, I think that is really interesting, because there can be some biases that form, some prejudice.
And I can tell you, we've had some clients, obviously I will not name names, that sort of, somebody who looks absolutely perfect in terms of their soft skills, the qualifications and everything else, and the client just won't consider them because of some
element. Yeah. But if that process was changed where they're just looking at those elements, then I think Steve's right, and you're right there, that it gives a much more diverse process. You're finding people where you might not think to look, and they might be better than you ever imagined for a particular element of the business.
And not to mention the diversity that would bring to your workplace as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we've spoken a lot about the sort of the beginning and the middle part of this process. Perhaps we could have a few maybe examples of what happens to companies that start to embrace this. What have you sort of seen? Let's take I don't know. Let's take an organization, perhaps a high street organization, and before they started using this type of process or this type of thinking, let's say they were sifting through 1,000 CVs. These people were leaving after 3 months because they just didn't pick the right ones. What's been the result that you've seen from doing this?
Well, I've got a perfect example here. One of my longest serving clients, I won't mention the brand unless you want me to, but one of the longest.
You can, it's fine. It's not the BBC. So.
It's a Costa Coffee franchisee with around about 50 stores now. And when I went to see them, they were sifting CVs because that was the only thing that was available. And they decided to give us a try. And 7 months later, their staff turnover, they measured it again, and they had dropped from 35% to 25% in 7 months.
Wow.
Which is a significant reduction. And they've stopped looking at CVs at all. So it's, if you needed proof, there it is.
So they now don't use CVs in any way. The whole process is they don't even look at the CV further down the line in that particular.
They may do it further down the line, but they certainly don't do it earlier, because our system is designed in such a way that you don't look at the CV until you actually physically want to see it, and by then you've seen all the other information about the applicants.
I think it's really interesting. The CV in certain roles can be removed from the process, perhaps completely, right? Because it's those soft skills that are so vital. And once you become confident and once you believe in those soft skills enough, but look, there has to be a real confidence and belief, doesn't there, in these soft skills?
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously it took them a while to sort of start trusting it, but once they saw the results, the rest was sort of obvious. So, in fact, I also remember another customer. It's a different example. They had a car dealership somewhere near Newcastle, and they specifically said they didn't want anybody who'd done car sales before, because they didn't want them to come with bad habits. They were going to train them themselves rather than pick up somebody else's. So,
yeah, I think it's really interesting. But I think when you said there about the results speak for themselves, if you're a franchisor, or if you're an employer, or if you're somebody who's looking for a job, you've got to go through this process to start to really appreciate it, and to understand a different way of doing things.
Yeah.
You mentioned that person who applied for, 200 jobs and didn't hear anything, and you see these stories all the time, and like you say, it baffles me how that could be the case if they're jobs that their soft skills are appropriate, their skills are appropriate for it, that they don't hear back. But it can be a very difficult and frustrating journey for people, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, in the cases I'm thinking of, it was something on LinkedIn that I saw, and it's not that I saw it once, I saw it 2, 3, 4 times, and you start wondering, well, actually you've sort of highlighted maybe they are people who are maybe being disingenuous. Maybe that is the case.
Well, yeah, and I think, look, this is part of this conversation that we are looking at the moment at a new way for employers and a new way for franchisors to look at their recruitment process. But if it really, to me, is highlighted today as well that this is also a new way for a employee or somebody who is looking for a job to go about the process of finding one. You know, if rather than sitting down and writing your CV in inverted commas, if you sat down and really thought hard about your soft skills, right, and you wrote a document, even though sometimes you're going to be going through an application process, but you wrote a document that just put together those soft skills and sent that to a recruiter. I wonder what the response would be and whether that would be a positive one. You know, what have people got to lose?
Absolutely. Whether they would see it or not is another question. But yeah, if they would see it, then maybe they ought to take notice of it. Certainly, because at least that person thinking outside of the box and saying, actually, you know, my soft skills are much more important than what's in my CV.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, perhaps people wouldn't have seen that, and you know, might think it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. We've got one more. What's this one? Oh, that's a Premier Inn room if ever I've seen one. Yes, well spotted, John.
My office.
Or the Purple Palace, as I'm liking to call it now. Excellent. Well, look, we have come now to the end of the first part of today's show. And of course, the next bit of the show is sponsored by my lovely friend, Paul Murphy. But I have to turn the camera off for a little bit here because this is the point where I switch hats. And you can't see me without a hat unless I forget to turn the camera off, of course, which I have done. But this is brought to you by PJ Murphy and Sons, bespoke British hatters. So if you want a beauty like this one, then speak to Paul. Now, this is the bit where we stop talking about franchising and recruitment, and we have a little bit of fun. And I think last time we were asked Nick about someone famous he's met. So this time we're going to ask him something different. So Nick, perhaps tell us something that we don't know about you. Give us a story we don't know about young Nick.
Right. Well, so a few people probably don't know, but I'm originally from Croatia. And a few years ago, quite a few years ago, I went back for Christmas and New Year. And I have some cousins out there, and I met them, and we went to this very nice hotel in the mountains above Ljubljana in Slovenia, and we were there for New Year's Eve. And halfway through the evening, the hotel manager came to our table and sort of tapped me on the shoulder and said, I wonder if you just come to the office for a moment. I said, no, it's all right. We are celebrating. No, it's not going to take long. Just please, if you wouldn't mind. So eventually I went with him. And when I got into his office, there were two armed soldiers there with submachine guns who informed me that they had checked the computer and that I was a deserter. And I would now be marched to prison, and the following day would be put on a train and taken to Zagreb to military prison. So I thought it would be best not to argue with that, since they showed me that the guns were loaded. So off I went. Spent the rest of the evening in a cell. Following day, they frog marched me down to the station and on a train where I went to military prison in Zagreb. And I was there for 3 days because the people who could have solved the problem were away on a long holiday because it was New Year's Eve. And eventually some sort of general or other sort of said, oh no, this is all an administrative cock-up, so you can let him go.
That's awful.
Halfway through my time there, I sort of started thinking, God, what am I going to tell my employer? I had a very nice job actually at the time, traveling the world, buying and selling companies. And I was thinking, message to employer saying, dear Rowley, sorry, currently in prison. Please hold job until I return. I mean,
Yes, I'm not sure how that would work for the retention of employees there, but yeah, oh my goodness, wow. What a story. Well, look, also it's customary during this part of the show. You have been amazing and answered all these questions beautifully, and added a huge amount of value to our community. But you get to get your own back if you wish. Right now, you can let me get away with it, and I'm positively encouraging people to do this, but I'm bracing myself. You can ask me any question you like. There you go.
Okay. I'm not sure if this has been asked before. What's your favorite sport?
My favorite sport? It's a good question. I think I'm not very good at it, but I'm gonna have to say golf, because I do enjoy playing a bit of golf, although I am, as my friends will probably confirm, not the best at it. Probably 1 in 10 shots, I'm amazing, but
that's one of those games where, even if you're not very good at it, it's good fun because you get to use the clubs twice as often as anybody else. So you get more fun out of it if you're no good at it than if you are.
Exactly. I definitely get more use of those golf courses, and I find I lose lots of balls, but then I find lots because I'm always in there sort of woods chopping away with my clubs. Brilliant. Well, look, we have come to the end of today's episode, so it leaves me first of all to thank everyone who has been with us live today. This show is what it is because of you all and because of our fantastic community. So thanks for getting involved. Thanks for spending your time with us this evening. And I would like to thank the lovely Nik Plevan for being with us and speaking about this subject so beautifully. Thank you, Nik.
Thank you, Harvey.
You're welcome. And next week on the Franchise Show, join us 16th of December, and it's going to be a surprise because that person couldn't do it. So I'm going to find something and somebody to talk to next week. So it's a surprise to me and everybody else. But please join us next Tuesday, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST. Until next time, take very good care. Cheerio.
Thank you.